Hi, this is Woodworks. You may remember me from such videos as fixing the Hyundai Sonata, working on a Chevy Blazer. Well, today I'm working on a Honda Pilot. My parts finally came in. The timing belt has been replaced. But when you replace timing belt, you should replace the pulleys and the water pump. Those things weren't replaced. So I've been waiting on those parts to come in so I can complete this job. The parts are in. Today is the day we're going to replace all those parts, and hopefully I'll drive this thing out of the garage today. It'll be up and running and ready to go. While I've been waiting for parts, I've been cleaning the inside, deep clean, top to bottom, because it needed it. Still have the headliner to do after I get the water pump and the pulleys on, but I'm hoping I drive it out today. So that's what we're doing. I'm not really going to make a how-to on how to do all this stuff. There are videos better than mine. You know, when I pull this thing in the garage, the top timing covers were already removed to try to determine the problem, which was the timing tensioner needed to be replaced. But, oh yeah, you know, I said the pulleys and the water pump, yeah, you replace the timing tensioner as well. That was the issue. That thing was bad. Definitely need to replace that. Determined that last person I bought it from, they had not replaced the water pump. Didn't know when it had been replaced, so we're in there. We're going to do that. Power steering pump, just move that out of the way because you need to get to this engine mount right there because you got to take that out because you know what's behind that engine mount? The water pump. Yeah, you got to take the engine mount out to get to the water pump. I don't know if you can quite see if it's down right in there. So right now I've got the engine. It is jacked up, got a block of wood and a jack. I'll show you that because I'm sure you're dying to see. So you can see the jack, block of wood on the edge of the oil pan just to support the engine because otherwise if you took these bolts out, the engine would fall and you definitely don't want that. I've drained the coolant. I had that drained as I was removing these bolts. So now that I'm to this point, the next step is to remove this bracket right there. There's three 14mm bolts connecting that engine mount to the engine. I need to take those three bolts out. Then I can access the water pump. Then I can remove and replace the water pump. Then I put everything back together, including all my pulleys and tensioners, and put all these covers back on, and we're in business. And this thing should run. I mean, it ran fine. Just you can see the timing belt flopping around, which is not good, making a noise, and you know you don't want to jump time or anything like that. So that is why we are where we are. Doing this really makes me wish I had a lift. It'd be a lot easier to access from the bottom. So getting this engine mount out. I'm just making this video for posterity's sake. For me, in the future, I have to do this again. This is what I had to do. Maybe there's a better way. If you got some ideas, let me know. But there is a bolt, kind of at the bottom. Am I looking at that right? Yeah, kind of the bottom here. That one, I was able to get a ratchet on and break. There's one right here. You can see my wrenches on it. That little thing is tricky. I could not get a ratchet on it because the ratchet was right up against the frame rail, so I couldn't really get my hand on there. I was trying a box end wrench to give me a little bit more space so I get my hand on it. Would not budge. What I ended up doing, you can see the wrench is upturned. I have my handy dandy breaker bar. I put that on the end of the pipe, hit it with a hammer to break it loose. It worked. I don't know how else you do it because from the bottom I can't get my hand between the frame rail and the wrench. The wrench is right against the frame rail. I don't know how you do this. There's still another bolt hidden in here. I'm not quite sure I'm gonna reach that one. I'm hoping I have easier luck. But I just wanted to make a note of it if I ever have to do this in the future. So I don't, I tried a number of different things, different wrenches, different things. Now it is broken loose and I can get it, but man, it's a tight little fit in there. I don't know what the standard or approved method is to get it. I got it, and that's how I did it. Now, back with more. And this one that's in the bracket, there's three bolts. There's three 14s in this bracket connected to the engine bay. Yeah, there's one that is very easy to miss. I know. I mean, I looked up these videos. When I do this work, I'm looking up videos, making sure there's not some trick to it. There's another one in here, so I'm hoping I can reach that a little bit easier, but man, against the frame rail, makes it tough. Now, I'd love to know how some other people do this, and this thing is being a chore. I'll tell you what. So you can see right here, that right in there is the motor mount. This connects the motor mount to the engine. I took that off. Why? So I couldn't get my 3/8 socket into the motor mount that connects to the engine. I mean, there's three pieces of this thing. It's ridiculous. Couldn't get my 3/8 socket in there, so I had to use a quarter and a breaker bar to break the third of three bolts that mount that bracket to the engine. Well, now I can't back it all the way out because you can see my little quarter socket in there. It is wedged between this motor mount and the thing, and it's not broken. I don't have any smaller sockets. I backed it all the way up before I realized it was completely stuck. It's like, what in the, so now I'm just gonna take the whole thing. I don't think there's anything above it. I don't know, there probably is. There's probably something else. But I think I'm gonna loosen it up and give me a little bit of space because I need this bracket out to replace the water pump, and my socket's all the way back. I just don't have anything small. I mean, I got a 1/4 inch ratchet. I don't have anything else small. That is what I've got. So I'm thinking I just, loosen these bolts on each side and see if I can give me a little bit of space. I don't know what's on top. Feels like there's a bracket on top. I don't think that's something just resting on it. But if I can just move that thing, loosen it, and maybe back it up just a little bit, I've got to be close on that motor mount. But I don't know, man. I love knowing how to do this. I looked up a video to see, what am I doing? Am I doing something grossly wrong? And the person's like, yeah, you know, just put your socket in first. Can't see anything here. Put this socket in first, then just put your ratchet up there. Well, my ratchet doesn't fit. Like, because of that, I don't have clearance. So this thing has been a chore. I'll tell you, a chore and a half, really. So I'm going to loosen up that motor mount. If I have to, we'll take it all the way out. You know, screw it. Let's go all the way. But hopefully we can go to space, because this motor mount is close. And I was thinking for a minute, I was looking at it, and like something was leaking. I'm like, what is leaking? But I realized the motor mount, I think one of the bolts, two of the bolts, maybe all the bolts of the motor mount go through the water pump. So when you loosen them, you got a little bit of leakage from the water pump. I was worried for a minute. I was like, what did I screw up? Thankfully this time, nothing. There is the engine mount bracket that hooks to the engine. I did have to take out or completely loosen the engine mount. But look, you can see that is the water pump. What did I set out to do? What did I set out today to do? Or take off the water pump. We finally now have access to the water pump, so that's a good thing. A couple years ago, I wanted some car projects, wanted to like get into some nitty gritty deep stuff. You know, we are into it. We are in the thick of it. We are there. Now let's remove the water pump, put a little catch can below it, and put on our new water pump. You know, do you want to see what that looks like? Are you curious? Are you as curious as I am? Well, I'm not curious. I already saw it. Let's set that there for safekeeping. Holy cow, man, that bolt. I mean, it's stuck in there. It's tough to reach. I'll tell you, it is not fun. Here's our new water pump. Yeah, it looks a lot like the old one. I mean, these things you're supposed to replace over 100,000 miles and replace the timing belt, because if you're going to take everything off, why not do that too? As far as I know, I don't think the water pump's ever been replaced on this thing. I mean, it's 280,000 miles, so that's wild. We're doing it today, so let's get the catch can under there. Let's take off the one, put on the new, and reassemble. Man, I hope reassembly is easier than taking everything apart. I mean, I've learned some valuable lessons, at least now with the engine mount out of the way. I can get my 3/8 socket on there. I can reach that motor mount to the engine a lot easier. I mean, that's really the trickiest part, is that engine mount. That thing was tricky to get out. You know, tight little fit. Everything else, I don't love it, but you know, it's doable. This is the start of things going back together, finally. So that motor mount thing, that was tricky. And really, I should have just removed the bracket that's mounted to the car and the one mounted to the engine. That would make things a little bit easier. I didn't know, so I looked up a video just to make sure I wasn't way out of line on what I was thinking. And oh yeah, you just put the socket in, then you put the ratchet on, and it's easy. Well, my ratchet wouldn't fit. My 1/4" ratchet wouldn't even loosen all the way. I had to remove that motor mount. Don't know why. I mean, this thing has never been wrecked. I know it for a fact, so nothing should be out of whack. Chalk it up to who knows what. So I put the water pump back on, put the idler pulley, put the tensioner assembly, put the hydraulic tensioner piston, or whatever it's called, and I was getting ready to put the engine mount on. I had put it in place, hold it in place. I was like, wait a minute. Am I missing something here? The timing belt. You gotta make sure the timing belt is back in place before we put the motor mount on, because once you put the motor mount on, well, if you put that on, you gotta put the timing belt in place. You have to take the motor mount off. So luckily, I stopped myself, and so before I ever started taking anything apart, I got the crank pulley to top dead center. Both camshaft pulleys aligned with a mark. There's a mark on the pulley, a mark on the block or the head, or I'm not looking at it, don't know what it is. There's a mark on the crank pulley and the engine block. Get all those things lined up, and then I marked the belt and I marked the pulley. So if my belt came off, because this belt, I know for a fact the belt's been replaced. That way I know where do my pulleys line up. I know where the pulleys are supposed to line up. I know where the belt's supposed to line up with the pulleys. That way you don't get off on timing. You get off on timing, you could have minor or major problems. I don't want any kind of problem, so I made a mark. And so through all this, you have to remove the pulley to get the water pump off. So, or not the pulley, the belt to get the water pump off. So now, before I put the motor mount on, I'm going to get my belt in place. Right now, I've got it in place. So I got scared for a minute because one of my camshafts, the pulley, as I was in there, the pulley moved. It's like, oh crap, it's not totally to the center. So I tried to like move it. It's very springy, didn't want to move. And I was like, well, hold on, let me think about this. Your camshaft, it's oval shaped where, you know, it spins. And so if you get off kind of like the peak of that oval, which is probably top to the center, I don't know, you'd have an issue. So I Googled it just in case, just to make sure my thinking was right. And it was that at top of the center, it's probably like perched on that oval. And if it shifts, it's not going to want to go back. Just get a wrench, go counterclockwise. Because you try to go all the way full revolution, you may hit valve with piston, which is bad. Anyway, if your camshaft pulley gets off, just back it up, get it back in place with all your marks, because your pulley should have a line in it, your head should have a line in it, and then once that's lined up, you line up your belt with a line in it with those lines. You're perfect. So this thing is close. I'm excited to crank this thing back up. It should work. Should be fine. Should be no more issues. The inside's just about cleaned up, ready to roll. I mean, it's got a lot of miles. That's okay. I'm still going to drive it around. As reassembly continues, I wanted to take a moment to tell you something. So I dropped the front pan just to, this thing, if it's on lift, I wouldn't need to, but since I'm not on lift, I just need that extra bit of clearance. As I dropped the front pan, this fell to the ground. I'm going to bet this is the OEM oil cap. I'm guessing somebody dropped it. It fell in the pan, they couldn't find it, and they bought a new one, because there's one on there. It's right there. I mean, I'm looking at it now. It's pretty generic looking. So I bet this is the OEM one. I'm gonna see if I can Google and see if I can get a shot of an engine bay to see if this looks OEM. I'm thinking it is. It's kind of funny, kind of odd that somebody lost the oil cap and replaced it, but they did. All right, the battery's hooked back up. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're gonna see if everything I did, my first timing belt, basically timing belt chain, I didn't change timing belt, but I did everything except that. See if that works. Lights came on, good sign. Will it crank? That is the question. Oh, I hear nothing crashing. It sounds good. Let's check things out. Not that I thought I did a bad job, but I just never know. I've never done this before. Sounds good. Sounds like a Honda engine that'll run 600,000 miles, we hope. I think we've got a success on our hands. It definitely sounds better than when I first got it. Battery's a little low. I don't know if you heard that. I think we're good. So let's look at my nav system. Forget how that works. Enter code. It says enter code before it came up on the nav system to enter a code. No, I don't know. This is weird. My nav screen is blank. It was on before. Enter code. What code do I want to enter? Where do I enter a code? Oh, that's a problem for another day. It runs. That's what's important. Quick note, I was wondering about why my nav screen is not on. Well, that is the DVD slot box for the nav system. I bet that's it. I bet if I hook that seat back up, I bet that nav screen will work again. That's probably it. And maybe some of this other stuff. I don't know. Could that be a factor? But I bet that box is it.